So welcome back. As it stands right now, we have an issue with our index page where earlier we defined the controller to list all the documents that have been created here. But instead of doing that, we actually want to only list the documents that have been created by our current user. In other words, only you can see your documents. I shouldn't have access to your documents. So to change this, we can go back into our controller, and here in our index action, we can just go doc where, and this is going to be where the user ID is the current user. So for all the documents that have that in their column have the same ID as the current user, we want all those documents to be visible. But if that's not the case, we do not want to display those documents on our index page. So let's save this, and right now if we go back into our browser and refresh, we'll see that all these documents are visible. Again, it's no longer in order of when it was created at this point, but let's actually go back into, let's actually create an incognito window, and it's going to be localhost 3000, and instead of docs it's going to be users/sign up. And let's create a second user here. It's going to be user 1 this time. And let's create a password for it. And the second user has been created this time. So let's go back and let's go to docs. As you can see, there are no documents because the second user has not created any documents. And that's why it doesn't exist. So let's actually get out of here and go back into our original view file. So at this point, we've fixed the issue of documents being visible to only the user that created them. So let's go back into our terminal and let's do git status to see what we did. It was just a controller, and let's git add all, git commit with the message, and this is going to be a change index to show current user docs. Perfect. So right now we have an issue where the welcome page is also visible to people that have already logged in. So if we go back to our browser, and if we go straight to the root directory or localhost 3000, we'll see that someone who's logged in can also see this marketing page, which doesn't make sense. We only have this marketing page for people that have not logged in. So we want the index page to be at this localhost 3000 directory. So instead of going to localhost 3000/docs, we just want to go to localhost 3000 and get this once we're logged in. So how do we do this? We actually need to go back into our routes. If we hold Command and T, you can quickly search for routes this way. If not, you can go to config and then find routes this way as well. So we need to make a few changes here. We technically want 2 root directories. One for the welcome index for everyone who has not logged in, and for people that have already logged in, we want the root to be our docs controller index action, which gives us this view file that is rendered on that page. So right here we need to make a few changes. So it's going to be authenticated user do, and we're asking here, so we're going to say it's going to be root files, or I should say docs controller index action, and we're actually renaming this because in Rails you can't have 2 root directories. It confuses the application, doesn't make sense, but we can create it and then rename it as something else. In our case, it's going to be authenticated root. So for someone who's logged in, they should say end here, not root. For someone who's logged in, they will go to the authenticated root. When they're not logged in, they will go to this root, to the welcome controller index action. We want this to be the root for someone who's already logged in. So let's save this and see if it's taken effect in our application. So if we go refresh this and actually go back to the index, perfect. So localhost 3000 lists all the documents that have been created, and this is for someone who's already logged in. When the person is not logged in on this root directory, they will show them the index, or I should say the welcome page with all the marketing information to tempt them to sign up. So we've made some good progress here. We want to go back into our terminal. Let's do git status. Only one document was changed. Git add, git commit with the message. This is going to be change root of application for authenticated user. Perfect. So at this point, we want to work on styling and adding some structure to our application. If you've noticed, it looks very bland and it looks pretty bad at this point. So before we go forward, let's go back into our Sublime text. Most of the work with style sheets is going to happen. Let's actually close this out. It's going to happen in this style sheet, in the app asset style sheets directory. This is the primary file here. So this required tree looks like a comment. What it actually does is it fetches all the other style sheets in this directory and it renders them here. And if you know anything about CSS, the stuff at the bottom overwrites the documents at the top. So we can't really control essentially the sequence of style sheets that are imported here. So to do that, or to make sure we work around that, we can actually delete all of this, get rid of the required tree, and we're going to manually import these other style sheets into our application.css. Well, we also want to rename this into application.css.scss. We're also going to rename these other files into application.css.scss and welcome.css.scss. And if you these two files, the welcome.css and the docs.css, were created when we created the controllers for the docs and the controller for the welcome. Application.css.scss was there from the very beginning, the same way application controller was there from the very beginning. So let's begin by going back here and importing a few of these files. So we're going to import, and the first one is going to be normalize. This is something we actually need to get from the internet. Just copy and paste it, and we can also even create a file for that here and save this as normalize.css.scss. What this does is it resets the browser for us, because if users are using multiple browsers to interact with our application, it might mess up the styling and structure of the app. So this resets it and takes care of that. So import, and it's going to be global.css.scss, and this is actually another file we also need to create here. So let's actually create a new one. Let's save this as global.css.scss. We won't spend too much time working on the styling of our application. I will essentially just copy and paste it, and you'll have a chance to play around with it as well, because again, this is a Ruby on Rails tutorial. So it's going to be docs.css.scss, and the last one actually is going to be at welcome. Okay, import welcome.css.scss, and let's also save this. So we have normalize, we have global, we have docs, and we have welcome. Perfect. So let's actually go back and get normalize right now. If we go back into our browser, this is the normalize. Let me actually show you how I got it. If you just go Google normalize, you'll get the this link, the first one, and it makes browsers, it resets browsers. So you can click download, select all of this, copy it, go back into Sublime text, and in this normalize.css.scss that we created, just paste it in, and let's save this, and that should be good for now. So let's go back into our terminal, clean this up, git status, git add, and then git commit with the message add SCSS and style sheets. Perfect.